Right.
We could be live right now.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk as though we are live.
Yeah.
And
so
kind of kill some time here.
This has been pretty. It's been pretty great being in this room.
Yeah, I'm absolutely stoked to be here in this room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys notice behind us, we have this custom-made painting of John Lilly. Oh,
pretty cool, huh?
Well, I didn't see you there. Hi, welcome.
Hello. Yeah, so good of you to join us.
Yeah.
This is our first time doing a live video, and it turns out doing a live call-in show for a video is totally insane. So bear with us at the beginning while we figure out if there's any tech difficulties. But I think we're good. I mean, if you can hear us, then we're doing great. And you're doing great. You're listening very well out there.
If you can hear us, just yell out your window really loud that everything is great.
Yeah, it would help if you were in downtown Portland on our side, but either way, it's going to be great.
That sounds great here.
All right, so let's wait for the thumbs up from our producer to make sure that we're actually live and going and on the air, and we will kick this thing into action.
Okay,
we got the thumbs up.
This means is it. Woo! This is real now, you guys.
Hello,
welcome,
everybody.
Welcome to our live Daily Solutions podcast 2-hour bonanza
extravaganza.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild. 2 hours long. It's going to be 120 minutes.
Maybe even longer. If you give us enough questions, we're just going to do this forever. And we'll maybe have to sleep at some point.
I brought a cot. It's in the back, so I'm set.
And I was just going to share the cot with Ashkahn. So
we didn't agree to that, but that's fine.
Yes, it is great to be here. It has been a dream of ours to do a live call-in show. As I said on the Flow Collective, ever since I was a little boy listening to Car Talk on the radio, I dreamt of being one of those hosts. So, let's take it away. Who do we have? Wait, hold on. Sorry.
We have, in the custom of our podcast, one final intro for all of you to listen to.
Oh, great. I wasn't even going to mention it because I thought that something went wrong on the tech side and we weren't going to be able to play it.
Well, I mean, that might be true, but let's see. Let's see what happens.
This is the end for us, my friends. This is the final episode. We're glad you're here. So come sit near and ask us things you'd like to know. This is the conclusion of Daily Solutions. This is our final intro. But don't you fear, we're still right here. We've still got a 2-hour live call-in show. So here we go. Crash.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. We couldn't hear any of that intro, so we were just sort of waiting for a cue to come back on.
So to us, that was like the best intro we've ever made.
Just, silence. So hopefully you guys could hear something, because otherwise that would be embarrassing. We were just sort of sitting here nodding along to nothing. But that was welcome again. And now let's get. Wait, did you have something else?
Well, we got a fun format going on here this time.
Yeah, we're gonna be on video, and
this is live.
Yeah,
and we're taking calls. So
that is right, live calls.
Yeah.
So call in. And
how do people do that, Graham?
Oh, funny you should ask, Ashkahn.
Thanks, thank you.
Yeah. Just go over to floatanksolutions.com/askDSP. Call DSP. Which is call DSP. Call DSP.
It took us weeks to get the /podcast thing down. So yeah.
It's /call DSP. CALL-DSP. Go check it out. It has instructions there on how to get on the air with us.
Yeah.
And we have some kind of pre-lined up callers. We'll be taking calls live. And we already have someone on the line. So who's the first question asker that we have here?
Hi guys, it's Dave and Sharon from Cork in Ireland. We have a 2-tank centre and we're in business coming up on a year on the 16th of December. So
all right,
we're glad to be on the call with you, and glad of the opportunity to ask you a question or two.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Almost a year is pretty good.
Yeah, and just as a heads up too to anyone out there, although we did pre-screen some callers, we have no idea what they're going to ask. So all of this is on the fly, and yeah, hopefully not too embarrassing. Or hopefully, yeah. Either way.
So yeah, just try not to embarrass us. That's all we're really asking.
Not me, at least. Maybe this guy. Cool. So yeah, what's your question over there?
Yeah, what can we help you with? We need like a tagline. Like what's floating about in your head?
She's a bit nervous, So will you just say hello to Sharon just so she speaks on camera?
Hello, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for calling in.
So glad to have you here with us.
Yeah, we are excited. I'm a little bit nervous, but
yeah, you guys are doing great so far.
Yeah.
So what can we help out with?
Well, I suppose first of all, I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge with everybody in the world that's interested in float tanks, because we've learned a hell of a lot from you. We've listened to most of the podcasts and looked at a lot of the FloatCon talks that are on YouTube, and also learned a lot from the guys that after the float. So we've tried to take that knowledge and apply it to our float center, through a lot of stress and trying to get it right, and we believe we've got probably 90% of it the way the way that we've been advised through the knowledge that you're sharing, So thanks very much for that anyway, just for giving that resource out there and helping people like us out there, that don't have a clue,
Sure.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And our apologies if any of that goes horribly wrong too, because
some of it.
We don't really know what we're
it.
talking about. So
I suppose our question is, it was around the high density polyethylene and the anti-vibration pad system for mounting the tanks, So we're looking at doing that. We've got 2 dream pods, so they're quite heavy, so we're nervous about trying to lift them onto this platform. But as well as that, should we glue the anti-vibration pads to the HDPE? And any knowledge at all or any experience you can share with us from your experience at Float On in doing the same,
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess let's start by maybe getting some people up to speed if none of what he just said makes any sense to you out there.
Yep. I'm Graham.
I'm Ashkahn. Float tanks are big bathtubs. So there's these things, there's like these anti-vibration pads that are there to reduce vibration, help with the soundproofing. So you put your whole float tank on top of them so that they're kind of isolated from the building and vibration doesn't go up through them, or it reduces the amount of vibration that can go up through them by kind of alternating the densities, by kind of having different materials layered on top of each other.
And you'll see different forms of this too. We really like this, exactly what was described, a platform with these anti-vibration pads underneath, as opposed to maybe a full mat that you'll put under a float tank, which you see sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And we like it better because it gives a little gap there between the float tank and the floor, so you can actually clean underneath it. You're less worried about water kind of gathering, getting mildewy. And then also it is just less points of contact with the ground. So we end up only using about 11 of these vibration pads. And then on top of that sits, initially when we first got started, we used plywood, but the HDPE board that's being mentioned, high density polyethylene, it's basically just like a plastic plywood. So because we're around so much water and salt, we want to make sure that doesn't get just eaten alive by all the salt water.
So the question is a good one. Like, how do you know that this is going to be able to support the weight, or you're not going to damage your system, or kind of, that this is going to be an appropriate thing to put under your float tank? And in some senses, that's what the HDPE board is. Like it's there. You don't really need that other than to try to make this system a little bit more stable. Yeah. With soundproofing, one of the things that helps is the least amount of surface area possible. So, when Graham was saying there are these mats out there and we prefer these kind of little pucks, these vibration pads, it's because those things have just a very small amount of surface area, right? We put 11 of them and they're 3 inches by 3 inches. So there's a little 9-inch square little pad. And even that only has certain slits in it that's actually touching the ground. So the total surface area across all 11 of these that's touching the ground is pretty minimal. But then the concern becomes if you stick these directly to the bottom of your float tank, the entire weight of your float tank is now resting on these 11 points. And that is what kind of made us nervous. We were a little nervous, as you guys are, that would be not great for the fiberglass or might lead to some sort of long-term damage or something like that. And so basically that's why we connect them to the HDPE board. We connect those, we do glue them to the HDPE board, and then that makes it so the weight is kind of distributed, right? So you now the whole bottom of the float tank is sitting on one gigantic flat surface, and then the float tank goes on top of that. And basically we specifically chose those materials because of the waterproof and mold resistant nature of them. So the HDPE board, and then we also use these specific vibration isolation pads that are pretty much made out of rubber, as opposed to cork. And that way those are also waterproof. And the kind of like odd, nice benefit that comes about having a total waterproof system like that is you can just totally spray a hose under it. You can like go underneath your float tank, spray down the entire underneath it, and any salt that might be down there, something can come flowing out. And it's a pretty cool random benefit of setting up a system like this.
Yep. And then, I guess there were kind of two questions on top of that. Like, how are we lifting the tank, I guess was one. And how do we lift it? So I got a question for you guys. Do you have suction cups? Like big, hefty, heavy-duty suction cups at all?
No, we don't. We were going to get lifting straps and, get a couple of strong lads one end and strong lads the other end and try to shoulder it up, and then slide the board in underneath.
The strong lad system. Yes. Yeah, we've heard it before.
So totally, along with the strong lad system, I totally recommend looking into some they're like industrial suction cups.
Yeah.
And they're really cool. They can support a lot of weight. And for moving float tanks, I mean, the first time that we saw someone moving around a float tank with those things, we were just like, order us 6, please, and we're never going back. Like, it's amazing. Whenever we're moving stuff for the conference, we use them. So I just highly recommend investing in these nice suction cups. Probably about 4 of them.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things with those. I mean, often the manufacturers are using those to lift their float tanks around in their facilities or when they're doing installation and stuff like that. So, plenty of float tanks have been lifted with these suction cups safely without them being damaged. You can get them on like Amazon or something pretty easily. They're the same things that like a glass, like a window repair or something. That's what like the suction cups they use to hold these big panes of glass as they're trying to install windows. But specifically, there's some out there that are meant more for curved surfaces as opposed to straight surfaces. And those ones are like, they're nice.
Yeah,
they're so much nicer than the straight ones.
But especially for something like a Dream Pod that has all those curves on it. Yeah, getting the ones for curved edges is amazing. So that would be my suggestion for lifting it.
So yeah, you're probably for 4 of them, you're looking at maybe a couple $100, but that you can lift that safely. The one thing I will say that we've had trouble with in the past is because you're getting this huge piece of HDPE board, right, that has to fit underneath the entire float tank, it can often be hard, depending on if your float tanks are already in the room, to kind of get that thing into the room and then maneuver it underneath the float tank. So ideally, you put this in first, then you put the float tank on top of it, because that way it's easy. Are your float tanks in your rooms already?
Yeah, it's already there. Yeah,
no
and
problem.
Again, it's really,
we got a solution for that too. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, would you glue the pads to the board as well? Because try imagine in a small enough room putting the pads in the right distances from each other, and then putting a board, and then trying to lift a tank that's a quarter of a ton. It sounds to me a bit challenging, to get it right,
So what you can do is I would definitely glue the pads to the board beforehand, before you take them into the room. And what we've done in the past when our float tanks are in the room already is we'll just cut the board in half. And that way, we can lift the float tank up, and with it just being half the size, we can maneuver half under and then maneuver the other half underneath. Wow. And we've been able to successfully do that in a pretty small room, like without really a ton of space.
Yeah, and of course, the main thing is just having that platform the tank's resting on. So having it divided in half is actually not the worst thing. You might have to use like one extra vibration isolation pad, so you hit all the corners of the 2 pieces, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
And the vibration pads are pretty strong. So they're meant, the ones that we use that are 3 inches, everything I'm going to say is going to be in the imperial system of measurement. Sorry about that. But they're meant, I think they're rated to hold 50 pounds per square inch. So each 3 inch by 3 inch puck is 450 pounds of weight that just that one puck can hold. So we're putting more of them underneath than we even really need to, just to kind of balance out the pressure points far beyond the amount of weight that it can actually hold. So it should definitely be strong enough from that perspective too.
Yep. And then one other, I guess, tip for doing this is for the pods especially, we really like to trim the HDPE board so that it matches the kind of footprint of the pod.
Looks nice.
So it might take a little bit of, even before you put the pads on the bottom, you might just want to bring that board in there, set it underneath the pod, and then almost just try to stick a pencil underneath as far as you can to trace where the curve of the pod actually starts hitting the board. Bring it back out and then trim the board to that size. So now you just have this HDPE board that's perfectly sized for where the bottom curves down to it. And then the other thing we do with that is put 100% silicone caulking all the way around the tank, actually caulking it to the board. So now that way, if water actually hits the side of the tank, from the shower, people getting out, as it rolls down, you're not worried about it getting trapped between the edge of the tank and the HDPE board. It'll just slide, hit that caulking, and go all the way down to the ground. So you're less worried about kind of mildew and stuff gathering between the board and the tank.
And pretty much the main unfortunate thing about this is now your float tank is maybe 2 inches taller than it used to be. So
Yeah.
it's a little harder to get into and get out of, I noticeably so. That's the main kind of, I would say, issue that comes with this system.
So you might need to have some kind of a strong lad option where if people can't get into the tank on their own or reach over, there's a strong lad to sort of lift them into the tank.
Highly recommended. All right. How was...
Yeah, did that make sense?
Yeah.
Are we just talking nonsense over here?
Great. Oh, we may have lost them, actually. They may be so upset at our advice that they just hung up.
Yeah, just hung up.
That's going to be my assumption.
That sounds about right. Wouldn't be the first time.
No, it happens to us a lot.
Mostly with each other, but... All right. Let's see if we can get him back, and if not, we'll try to move on to the next caller here. Yeah. And in the meantime, tell some funny stories while we wait. Still getting in the swing of this whole thing, so... Yeah. This is Handy Bear.
Tell me about your time in Ireland.
Oh, my time in Ireland?
Yeah, how was it?
It was awesome.
Did you go to Cork?
No.
Oh. Because that would have been really appropriate for the context of the situation.
I flew into... Oh, wait, we got another caller? I flew into Dublin, and then I hitchhiked south with some nurses and just spent the entire weekend down with them partying. It was amazing.
Okay, that sounds pretty great.
Our next caller is Matt Brennan calling in.
Great.
Excellent.
Hello. Welcome
All
on
right.
the air, Matt. That was Juliet. Thank you, Juliet,
Thank you,
for
Juliet.
announcing the caller. Hello, Matt.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Pretty great.
It is going wonderful.
How are you?
How are you? Actually, hold that thought.
Very good.
We just hit our first 15-minute mark, which means I have a little special treat for you all. 1 second.
Yeah, 1 second here.
All right. First costume change in progress. Thought we'd rep some different float centers as long as we're wearing t-shirts on the air here. All right.
Very nice.
Yeah, thanks for holding on there, Matt. Yeah, so how can we help you?
Where are you from, Matt? We gotta start. We gotta do that thing. That radio
I'm
show.
from
The radio
Rochester,
show
New
people.
York.
It's we're them. We are those
Hey,
people.
Matt, where
now.
are you calling in from, Matt?
Is that with 2 T's? Good.
Yeah, I'm from Rochester, New York.
All right, excellent.
I work at a float center, and we offer some open float pools and some couples floats and also traditional floats. And I just wanted to explore the idea with you guys of, the difference between float purists and more the evolutionists, I guess. People that are thinking about more lights and sound. And I've been floating with some headphones recently with some binaural beats. And, just is that something that you guys think the industry should be staying away from, or should we let the market dictate what they're interested in?
Yeah, that's a good one.
It is a good question.
Yeah, kind of one of the eternal questions. Yeah, float creationism versus float evolution. Yeah. And how long have you guys been open, I guess, before we get into an answer?
So I'm just an employee there. We've just hit our 5-year anniversary, and I've been
nice.
there for 2 years.
Excellent.
Yeah, congrats. That's great.
What's the float center?
This is Body Mind.
All right.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
right. Yeah.
And what I almost actually had a Body Mind shirt. I didn't think I wore it. What do you guys do right now? Do you end up offering any alternatives, or are you kind of float purists yourself over there?
Well, besides having the couples floats, which some people would say is not pure in itself, we'll tell people that we'll give them music, but we don't generally push it. But everyone's free to keep their light on. Our open pools, I think, give a pretty pure float, but none of our members really use them, so I don't know if that's a true statement or not. So we don't really push the alternatives, but I just see some of these new fancy tanks with the color therapy and sounds and all that, and I wonder where it's going.
Yeah. So I guess to start things off, at Float On ourselves, like if we were just in charge of running our own float center and that's all we did, we're pretty float purists.
We tend to be on that side of the spectrum.
Yeah. In fact, if people ask if we can play music during their float, we usually tell them yes, technically, but we really recommend doing the first few times without any music.
I just yell at them to get out.
Yeah, why would you ask? Get out of here! You don't even deserve to be in this float center. So I mean, we at Float On kind of tread that hard line towards we really want to throw people into nothing. We don't even do intro music for people. We'll play outro music, but that's kind of the first sound that people hear from our center. We don't have any music in the lobby, and we almost have even undefinable decor. We sort of want people to go in as empty as they can into the float experience. So that's like our personal float center stance.
And so that's for a reason. And
and it's a good reason because it's us. So yeah.
Here's I'll give an argument for both sides because I definitely understand the non-purist view too. For us, the purism I think comes a lot from this a hesitation to give people crutches that they might want to use. Like I think there are a lot of scenarios out there where someone would really appreciate the kind of pure float experience, but they're nervous and, the idea of doing it with music playing or lights on sounds a lot less intimidating. And as a result, I think, would much more gravitate towards that if they were given the option. And we kind of like to give people that extra nudge. Like we like to be there to be like, no, sorry, we really wouldn't recommend listening to music, or you should definitely turn the lights off. Just because the people who we do give that extra nudge to, I think oftentimes float get that full experience and come out and realize that actually is kind of what they wanted. For us, when people ask about playing music, and I'll say like, hey, I really recommend the first couple times just going in without anything. Those people very rarely come back to ask for music later on down the line. So that's mostly where we're coming from. We want people who are maybe a little bit nervous about having that pure experience to kind of be nudged towards it to realize if that in fact is what they want or what they don't want.
Yeah, sure. And we have heard from other centers too that, when they don't do that and they do offer first timers kind of access to, even something again as simple as music. A lot of them just kind of habitually go back to that too, and that's like what a float is to them is going in with music. So all of that said, different floats for different folks, man. I think that centers can do whatever they want, and floating is really cool because it is starting from nothing, right? You're trying to get as close to absolute nothing as you can possibly get, and from there is a pretty cool place to build up. Kind of anything that you add to the tank from that point of again, as close to nothing as you can get is really cool. I do think that music, when, there's good speakers or good transducers in the tank, sounds awesome. And I've definitely had great floats with music playing.
Sure. I think all that stuff is definitely interesting. Different types of playing with lights or music or, couples floating or, all the listening to subliminal messaging or all the different things that you can do inside of VR, all the stuff that people do.
And we forgot to mention the subliminal messaging we shoot to our clients. Yeah, that is a good point.
We don't want them to know that, though. It won't work. So I guess the other side of it is I think stuff like that is definitely really interesting to explore. And I find that people do become interested in exploring it, after they've been floating a little bit too. So it is something that I'm way less nervous about encouraging our members to do or our regulars. If a member comes in and is like, hey, I really want to listen to this soundtrack while I'm floating, I'm like, that's awesome. You should definitely experiment with that because they know, they kind of know what the experience is. They've gotten a taste of that kind of quote unquote, pure float experience. And then I feel like you have a lot of license to explore and play around with things and see where that sort of stuff takes you. And that to me really removes that kind of concern about it being used as a crutch, right? Because these people know what they're doing. And so I definitely think it's all really cool. I wouldn't discredit someone's experience in there because they were listening to, some sort of music or lights or anything like that.
Yeah. Have you heard any like crazy suggestions for things in float tanks? I mean, we've been talking about music, 'cause that's one of the most common things,
Right.
and sort of shows what crazy float purists we are. But yeah, have you heard of any other kind of crazy additions that spurred on the question?
No, I mean, one thing that got me thinking about it is we've got one guy, he's a snowbird, and he only floats when he's up in New York, and he's a retired guy, and he always listens to either classic rock or Motown. He floats in the big open couples pool.
Yeah.
And that's just his style. He comes out smelling like he's sprayed a gallon of Axe on himself. But you don't question it. He comes in every other week while he's in town and seems to enjoy his floats. And so I don't know. Yeah, like you say, different floats for different folks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. Again, we kind of just ourselves take sort of a purist stance, and that's just very much who we are. But I think in general, the cool thing about running any small business, and especially in our industry, is that you can do whatever you want with your float center. Like if you're super into floating in VR, like go for it, knock it out. Yeah, be the crazy VR float center. I certainly have no problem with that, even though we probably wouldn't embrace that wholeheartedly at Float On,
I mean, I also think it might be, some of it I feel like is dependent on what you're looking for out of the float experience. Like some of that data that Justin Feinstein was showing in his research, people with anxiety when they were measuring those sorts of metrics on people, lights on versus lights off didn't really seem to make a huge difference in the data they were getting back. So it might be that, it's also dependent on that. For me, I can't stand having the lights on. Like it totally takes me out of it. Like the little tiniest bit of light is super grounding to me and really distracting. Maybe that's just because I'm looking for a different thing out of the float tanks than specifically stress reduction or physical pain relief that you're getting from, a lot of the buoyancy. So I think there's probably some of that going on too, where what benefits you're maybe most aspiring to might change your opinion on how much this stuff is affecting your float or not.
All right. Now it looks like we have to go on to another caller coming up here. But any last words for us or the audience before we let you go, Matt?
No, I appreciate your thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we stumbled our way through that question okay for you.
Yeah, it was great.
Thanks for joining us.
Say hi to David over there for us too.
All right, you got it. Float on.
All right. And we should have another caller lined up here.
For our next caller, we have Rick Bowling from Float STL.
Oh, thank you,
All
Julia.
right. Slick Rick. What's shaking,
How's
my
it going,
friend?
Rickster?
Hey.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Pretty great. Pretty great over here.
Yeah.
Good. So I got a question for you guys.
Oh, good. That's exciting. This would have been weird if you didn't. So that's good.
We can just hang out. But yeah. So I mean, you guys have ended, two big things, or this is the ending of a big thing for you guys. And I find it difficult to know how to end something and how to take care of it and end it well. And from our perspective, or my perspective, I think you guys do a pretty good job of that. So I think it might be valuable if you speak to, some advice on how people can end things.
Yeah. Yeah.
How to end things. It's yeah.
Well, does Tiffany know that you're asking this question, by the way?
She's at work right now, so.
Well, that's the end of this call, so we'll just go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I'll show you exactly how to end things. Next caller, please.
Hang up. It's an interesting question, and we haven't really ended much stuff until recently. We've been much more in the can keep starting things.
Yeah, we're great at starting things.
Yeah, we're overwhelmed with how much stuff we have going on. So it's definitely a lesson we've been trying to learn too. And I would say the main, one thing I've definitely taken away from it is if you want to end something well, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, I think this is over now and finish, the float conference, it took us a year just to discuss the idea that we wanted to kind of do a final float conference ourselves. And then it took months to figure out what that meant and how it was going to continue. And it's still taking months to make that transition. I'm still working a ton, just trying to convert the thing into a nonprofit and stuff. So that's I mean, we're approaching almost 2 years of probably what it's going to take to quote unquote kind of like end that project. So that's definitely part of it. Like it takes a lot of time and care and effort to end things without just having them completely be done and just that be the end of it.
Did you have something in mind, Rick, that you're trying to end over there?
Did I have something in mind?
Oh, I mean that you're trying to end. Like, is this a loaded question? Are you trying to end our relationship, for example?
If it helps me in the long run.
I'll throw you guys under the bus if I can get a little bit further. Yeah, no problem.
I doubt it would. Yeah, I mean, it just comes up. It comes up a lot. There isn't anything
Pig Latin too. If you can't say it out loud, that's fine. We both understand Pig Latin.
We won't tell them.
We might need to talk about it, off the record. It's not Tiffany though. I don't plan on doing that.
That's good. Yeah, and even for the like Ashkahn was saying, even for this podcast, it took us almost a month of planning to be able to do this live episode. And right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people on hand. So 5 people off camera right now just to run the thing, get all the lights set up and stuff like that. So it would have been easy to just sort of end on a last broadcast episode. And, I guess that when things are coming to an end for us, like we're big into celebration and monumental, or what's the word? Like the like milestones, I guess, and it feeling right. So we always have like a big anniversary party every year for Float On. And when we were winding down our podcast, it felt like we had to do something grand, even though, it's costing us a fair amount of money and our own time to do it. It just feels
probably a bad decision.
Yeah, it's probably a terrible business decision, but it like felt right. And maybe that's how you end things, is like you just have to make some sacrifices and really launch into it and try to go out with a bang. But this is projects too, right? Like projects you've kept going for a while. So very much a work ending thing.
But yeah, having some premeditation and realizing, I mean, I think one of the things I've realized too with these projects when we discuss ending them is that it's kind of our last opportunity to have the resources we've built up at our disposal for that specific project. And I think that's kind of what also encourages us to do something sort of grand at the end. I mean, I guess our Float Conference talk kind of exemplified that. Like we were literally like, hey, this is the last time we're just going to have a giant stage and we can do whatever we want. And like people have to listen to us. And so, and like realizing that once you end something, it's going to take so much longer to build back up to the place where you have, a podcast channel streaming already and artwork for it done already. And, all the people in place to make it happen already. Like take advantage of what you've built up while you still have it.
For one last shebang.
And that'll make you feel a lot better and give you some I guess like closure on the entire thing.
Yeah, well, I think it makes us feel a lot better. And as viewers in this particular instance and attending the Float Conference, it makes the people that you've been taking care of with this experience feel a lot better too. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's probably irrational. Like if you really thought about it, I'm not sure if it's justified for all the work and labor.
From like the
money.
logical side, yeah, but like emotionally,
yeah.
I mean, if you're not in it, do anything else.
If you're not in whatever you're doing for some emotional satisfaction, then you're probably making a mistake. You should just end that right now. So,
or you're one of our future robot overlords, in which case, hey, go for it. We love you guys. Awesome. Anything else we can do for you, Rick? It looks like we have another caller coming in here.
No, man, go on. I'm gonna end this and say goodbye.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks so much for the
in.
call. And we'll pause for 1 second. I just hit the next 15-minute mark.
All right, 1 moment.
While you're doing that, I'll go ahead and introduce our next caller, which is Drew, calling in from New Hampshire Float.
All right, Drew. I don't have my headphones on, so I can't hear you right now. But
it's really nice that you're here.
Yep, just switched to a East Coast Float Center, actually.
Hello.
All right, headphones back on. I can hear you, but Ashkahn can't for 1 more second.
No, I'm here now.
Yep.
All right.
We're both back.
Okay.
We're both back.
Drew, how can we help you today with the float tank knowledge that is in our brains? That's a bad tagline. I'm going to keep working on that one. It didn't quite roll off the tongue.
We should also ask Drew more questions this time. I feel like we're so used to talking to each other, we're bad at incorporating the caller right now.
That's true. Hey, Drew, hold on a second. We're going to figure this out. Yeah, I do agree. We should have Drew talk.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Drew? Should we? Anyway, yeah. How can we help you? What you got going on?
I was just wondering, how do you start a float center?
Get out of here!
Just kidding. Just kidding. So I have I hope I haven't been listening. I've been real busy, cranking out the floats here in New Hampshire.
Nice.
But I have some rapid fire questions for you guys. I hope you can play along with
Yeah, let's do this thing.
We're really bad at that, by the way. So if the first one takes 10 minutes, then you might only get one.
That's what I was worried about. All right. We'll try this out. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
All right. Tank, pod, or cabin?
Oh boy, I mean, we have a combination at our place.
Any of them? I think you can make any of them work.
No, which one do you like? What do you like to float in?
I mean, I literally switch between all 6 of our tanks, which we have pods, cabins, and open rooms, and I just go between them. And we used to have the kind of, hatch tank style, and I'd float in those. Like, I have good floats in every single type of unit.
I think the two of us probably care the least. Like, it really makes very little difference to me for my personal floats if I'm in a pod, cabin, or room. Like, I can hardly tell the difference.
And at least for the center too, for float on, again, having a combo has been really nice. Some people like tanks, some people like pods, some people like cabins, some people like the open pools. And having a variety for us has been really hard on our employees because they have to learn like 6 totally different systems, but really great for our customers.
People like it. We get compliments on having a variety of different styles for people to choose.
Excellent answers. You passed the first test. Awesome, no matter what you're doing it in.
Excellent.
Nailed it. All right. Earplugs or no earplugs? You wear them.
Interesting. I wear earplugs, but I'm like one of the only people
on staff at Float
On staff. Jordan, our sound engineer, wears them too, and I think we're the only 2 people that I know of at Float On that wears earplugs.
Yeah, which means I do not wear earplugs. Just go in raw ears. Naked. Yeah.
They take off all those ear clothes. I personally just find that the feeling this was supposed to be rapid fire. Sorry.
No, go on. What do you feel?
I just feel like the feeling of water getting in my ears, it feels weird to me. I don't know. It feels like it just really gets in there and it gets all like squirrely and I feel like it's in my head and it's like whispering things to me that are weird.
You don't like that?
I don't like it.
I mean, I was going to say the same thing, but that's why I don't wear earplugs.
Oh, whatever subliminal messaging we've been putting into the systems. It's been weird for me.
Don't wear earplugs.
So I wear earplugs.
You, Ashkahn. I don't like that squishy ear.
You don't like the squirrely.
You're a freak too.
Yeah. I will say we're the exception. Most people who float regularly seem to not want to wear earplugs. But
okay, what's the next one? We'll go rapid fire. We'll do better with this. Yeah.
Next question: music while floating or no music?
Oh, we just kind of answered that one on
we're kind of no music.
As far as purists. Yeah, no music.
Floating in the morning or at night? Or does it matter?
Yeah,
I would say it does matter.
Yeah.
I actually find that to be one of the biggest contributions to how what my float experience is like, is what time of day I'm doing it.
So let's add in another one, which is midday.
Yeah.
Right. We'll call it and late night. We'll do 4 combos here.
And super early morning.
Okay. What's yours?
I'm a middle of the day guy. I like to float when my body is like at the peak of its energy for the day. Honestly.
MOTDG. Middle of the day guy.
Yeah. MOTDG. And so for me, like hopping in the float tank when I'm like ready and gunning, like those are the best experiences I tend to have. I don't usually have a lot of difficulty relaxing. That's not really been a big thing in my life.
Ashkahn can fall asleep anywhere if you don't know that already.
So that's for me, like my best floats are ones where I'm in there and I have these really like awesome states of mind where I can think through a lot of things and have cool epiphany moments and stuff like that. And I feel like I get that the most in the middle of the day. So those are my favorite floats. I like floating in the morning is the worst floats I can do. I'm super tired. I wake up and then I get into a float tank and my brain is just like, oh, what are you doing? Like we just put all this effort into getting up and now we're just going to lay back down. It's super confusing. It's never really been my preference.
Yeah. And I would say I agree with that part for sure. Like the morning floats are some of the like least pleasant or just like less good ones that I've had. I actually really like late night floats. So some of the best floats that I have are after midnight. So getting in at like 2 a.m. or, back when we actually closed and weren't open 24 hours, hopping in around midnight. And I also like not timing myself. So there's something really nice about getting in those kind of witching hours and just getting out whenever you feel like it. And sometimes it's a 1 hour float and sometimes you're in there for 5 hours and sometimes the opener comes in and wakes you up, pool noodle. Yep.
Awesome. I've never done the late night float. I'm gonna have to try that now. After midnight float.
Yeah. Totally recommend it. What's your favorite time of day, really quickly, to float?
Morning. I got used to it. I had a lot of floats in the morning, just kind of circumstance, and boom.
Are you a morning person typically? Would you describe yourself?
No, I need a solid hour of not talking to anybody in the morning before I'm a happy camper.
Interesting.
Yeah, we have found, just as a side note, that it really seems like people who are morning people like the morning floats more, and people who are night people, which I'm totally a night owl, tend to like night floats a little more. So yeah, you break the mold.
I should maybe qualify this a little bit by saying, for me, I floating at like 1 o'clock feels great, but I woke up at like 11. So that it's like kind of morning. Like you could maybe describe that as a morning float. So maybe I'm bored with you here. Maybe I am a morning person. It's just my morning is shifted towards the afternoon.
All right, I think we have one more rapid fire question we can take from you if you got one.
Yeah, hit us.
Okay. Yay or nay? Guys from New Hampshire named Drew who love you guys and appreciate you very much.
It's going to be a big nay.
I'm gonna say yay. I'm gonna go yay on
no,
this.
You know what? You convinced me.
Yeah,
I'm on board with the yay as well.
You got 2 yays here.
No, you rocked, Drew. Yeah, thanks for the questions over the year. And thanks for being one of our callers as well.
Seriously.
Yeah, great having you on the air live
you
with
guys.
us.
You guys are awesome. We appreciate everything you do for us, and you're a huge resource to the community, and we love you.
Thanks, Drew. Yeah, we love you too.
Awesome.
All right. Take care over there.
Talk to you guys.
Yeah. Talk to you very soon.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks again, Drew.
Okay. Take care. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
For our next caller,
yes,
we have Justin and a special guest.
All right.
Oh.
Hello there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
All
Justin
right.
Feinstein.
Hey, can you hear
good
me?
to have you on the air. Yeah.
Oh, hey, I'm live too. What's up?
Nice. Hey, Flux.
We're gonna
right.
gang up on you.
Oh, we got a lot of special guests with this
we
here.
got a triple, huh?
You got float from research past, float from research current, and float of the future.
Excellent.
All online right now.
All right.
That's right.
That's a
all
very
right.
strange Christmas carol.
So that's Tom Fine, our third kind
Yes, that's me.
of float celebrity with us here today. This is exciting.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for calling in, guys. This is awesome to have you all on at the same time.
You know, I was thinking about what to say to you guys, and in some ways, you guys are like the Seinfeld of floating. If you remember, Seinfeld left the show at its peak. I mean, he had more viewers than anybody else in America. The show was just, really gaining steam. They could have probably gone on for another 5 seasons. But that's when he left. And I feel like the Float Conference and then this Deli Solutions podcast was just getting steam. It was getting to the peak, and you guys just pulled out right when people wanted more.
Yeah, that's generally what we like to leave people feeling, kind of abandoned and
bereft of our presence. Yeah.
So I'd like to know where you're going.
Where we're going next?
Yeah,
us too.
I figure you guys have, a place you're going to.
Yeah, we're open to suggestions. It's interesting in that we started a float center 8 years ago, and then we promptly started like a million other projects as well, which have all been running in the background. So it's interesting, like our time doesn't really totally change or shift to new things, except for things like starting a podcast, which we did a year ago every single day. But it does shift attention. So it feels like kind of the next wave of our attention is going towards surfing in South America, or no, back to the helm.
That's what I was thinking.
We really got to figure this surfing in South America thing out. So we're gonna have to focus on it for probably at least the next 5 years.
Yeah, maybe a decade. So I think we're going to focus a little bit on the software, at least for 2019, which is to say, like, that'll probably be 50% of our time, and the rest will be divided among all the other crazy things that we have going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because as the float industry gets bigger, all of these projects we started also keep getting bigger and bigger. And so suddenly just doing the same amount that we had been doing gets harder because they all have to be kind of keeping up with the growth. So that a couple of years ago made us realize we need to consolidate a little bit and kind of stop starting new projects And then we decided to start a daily podcast after.
I don't know what's wrong with
that. So
I don't know what's wrong.
We clearly have a problem.
You guys have psychology backgrounds. What would you say that our disorder
Help us.
is?
Megalomaniacs.
Well, there
Speaking
probably
of-
are some diagnostic categories.
They're working on a new one specifically for you in the DSM.
So I don't know. Like, we're also not, as much as it may seem like we have a lot of premeditated thoughts in our head. We're not really that. We don't think that far ahead, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very true.
Like, this podcast only took a couple months for us to come up with and start doing. Like, we just kind of come up with ideas, get really excited about them, start them, realize we need a
Those
huge
are
mistake.
lies. I know that you both have plans for world domination, and I am here to offer my services in the New World Order.
Okay.
So,
You weren't supposed to say that on the air, but
Yeah, we usually
that's-
keep those things on the subliminal level.
Yeah.
You know, you're supposed
the
to.
plan is triggered now, Flux. We have to go to stage 2.
All right, let's go.
Does it mean that we have to wear funny hats?
Yeah, I would say that's one of.
That's,
I mean, the entire
critical.
world in funny hats.
That's
is part
pretty
of
much the
dream,
lever
yeah.
of stage 2 is funny hats.
With little mind control implants put in there too. Yeah, that's how we get them.
Yeah, Trump would be so much more pleasant if he wore a funny hat. That's
well,
or
he already
maybe
has
kind
one.
of does.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
What about you guys? Can you tell us anything about some future float research plans that
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Now, that's
we
a good
asked
one.
the questions
Yeah.
now. How about that, huh? What's exciting in the research world?
Flux has been out here for a couple visits recently. Flux, do you have anything to report?
yeah, it's all kind of top secret, but no, I think what I'm really excited about is that we've been having a lot of talks about looking at immune reactivity instead of just looking at basic immune function. And the directions that we're going with that, I have a lot of high hopes for, and I think it really give us some interesting data to see not just the effects of a single float, but look at repeated floats and how that enables us to understand that. I actually got the idea from my own personal data. So I collect extensive data on myself, about like 150 variables every day. And a few of them are kind of like immune related, just like how sick I am, how tired I'm feeling. And this summer, I was kind of a mess. After the float conference, I was very sick constantly.
Oh, that's Ashkahn and I actually draining your energy. Yeah, if you get too close to us, we start.
We're 157 years old. That's how we've been surviving.
But so I started floating more regularly. Shout out to Samana out in Denver.
Yeah. Nice.
And there's this ridiculous drop off in like every marker that has to do with the immune system. Like everything just got healthier. And so when we were talking about how to look at the immune system in the next generation of float research, we started thinking more about this reactivity component. So I'm super excited about it. It's kind of my baby. Hopefully it'll be my dissertation. We'll see what happens.
Flux, I'd like to ask you a question.
Yeah.
How are you going? How are you going to assess? How are you thinking of assessing immune reactivity? Are you going to give it a challenge?
Oh, the specifics. We can talk about that off the air, but
okay.
There are some. We have a very detailed protocol that Justin and I have been building, but we're not quite ready to share it with the world yet. So
you can tell the truth, Flux, if you just don't want to share it with me and Ashkahn. We won't be
understand.
offended.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
It will be a challenge, and it will be a challenge directly to the blood, which is exciting because we're going to get molecular markers of sort of the blood's reactivity to stress and be able to see whether or not that actually changes with repeated sessions of floating.
Oh. Are you guys
it's going to be the most exciting dissertation I'd ever heard about. I can't imagine somebody better than Flux putting this together.
Are you doing what Tom Fine did by having people stick their arm out of the float tank mid-float to draw their blood?
That's right.
We
also
is
did
the only
the indwelling.
courageous enough to actually do that. I'm blood is going to be getting everywhere if we were to do that.
In the history of it, I was the first one to stick my arm out and get poked.
That's good.
Is that that photo that we
Bold.
have of John Turner taking the blood? Is that your arm coming out, or is that an actual
Wait,
patient?
No, he was taking blood pressure. But we had a young woman working with us who was a phlebotomist, and she was the first one to draw it. I stuck my arm out of the tank and she drew my blood. And I'm in there and I'm going, this is better than getting it done at the lab. So it wasn't that bad. We figured, okay, it's not going to bother people too much.
So would you say that this is something that float centers should think about incorporating into their regular float services they offer? Like, did it enhance the experience?
I would suggest not.
Float bottomists?
Phlebotomy float tech hybrid. I don't think there's a future in that.
Oh man, awesome. Yeah. You got any more questions for people, Tom? Or
because we can leave. I mean, you seem like
well. One thing that I think is worth highlighting is the fact that none of this was really happening before the Float conference came to the forefront. And over the past 5 years, we've been slowly building an evidence base. And as of this year, we finally received the first NIH funding to look at this in a rigorous clinical trial. So the news just came out about a month ago, and we're excited because starting probably later in December, we're going to be launching the first NIH-funded float study.
Yeah, that's super
which
cool.
is a huge step.
Yeah, I especially one of the things I've been telling a lot of people is that this not only is it a huge step in terms of funding, but it's a huge step in terms of legitimizing float as an actual therapy that can, be used. I think there's a lot of skepticism still in the general public about what, but it's just get in a bathtub. But,
right.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Being able to have government-funded clinical trial data it goes such a long way in really getting people to trust in this and realize that it's legitimate.
Yeah, and
the skepticism also applies to medical science. Medical science has sidelined many of the complementary medicine approaches, but floating was always even more sidelined. And now that they've pulled it in, I think that other researchers may start looking at this as something they'd be willing to do. Matter of fact, we're very fortunate. The chairman of our department is interested in bringing back floating to the University of Toledo.
Oh,
really?
yeah.
That's cool.
So,
that sounds great.
Yeah, so we're in the process now of, trying to make that happen, and hopefully we'll be actually beginning some work in both addictions and people with chronic pain. So we've got two possibilities there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And it's been long enough that they don't remember all the salt damage from before. So you're in the clear again.
Yeah, let's hope they're not listening to this podcast. Huh? Perfect. Well, honestly, we could chat with you guys forever, like the entire rest of this podcast. But I think we do have some other people lined up, so we might need to let you go relatively soon. Any last words or just anything exciting that you have going on you want to share with the audience, as long as you're live here?
Well, to me, the most exciting thing, you guys, is we got to get more researchers involved. And the fact that we have Flux here, and the fact that we're bringing Tom out of retirement and he's going to reinvigorate floating in Ohio, this is, I think, great developments for the whole field. And then if we could get some positive data in this clinical trial, I think you're going to see a surge of float researchers. And to me, I can't thank you guys enough for providing that platform through the Float conference and through things like this podcast to allow this to happen. I think it was a big sort of generator of all of this knowledge and inspired a lot of this research. So thank you guys for all your hard work and all the great things you've done for the community.
Definitely.
Oh, thanks. Well, thanks.
And
to you guys
there was
too.
one question I wanted to ask you guys.
Okay.
Oh boy.
How did you get involved with floating?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Won't go into too much depth, but yeah, roughly it was kind of through mutual friends. I mean, I think I'm the one who actually dragged Ashkahn into it.
Yeah, I just slept on his couch one day, and that kind of brought me into this whole.
Yeah, it's all history from there. And for me, I had a friend who's he's a little more traditionally masculine sort of friend, a little more, not broy is the wrong word, but, more in the like playing loud music, driving fast cars than I am. I'm sort of more of like a sensitive, sit home and read a book kind of guy. But, and this is one of our co-founders and my, like one of my best friends since high school, Quinn Zapata, who's, another owner of Float On. And he had floated down in LA, with Crash down there at Float Lab. And he got to stay in as long as he wanted. So I think he had a 3.5-hour float for his first one. And he got out, and I was talking to him. I think that night we were on the phone chatting. I was up in Portland at the time, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I just spent a long time thinking about my relationship with my mom and decided I need to give her a call and chat with her. And he was just sort of like rattling off all these emotional discoveries he'd made in the tank. And I was kind of like, okay, if this makes Quinn go a little mushy, then there's got to be something here. And yeah, from there it was just starting to actually float and falling in love with it. And I think from my first float, it was less than 6 months before we actually opened Float On. And from Ashkahn's first float, it was
2 months, I think.
Yeah. So for us, it was just like we discovered it, and whatever life path we were on got immediately diverted.
I moved to Portland. I slept on Graham's couch, and then a week later, I had my bags and was standing at his doorstep, being like, "All right, let's do this float tank thing, huh?"
Excellent.
Well, it's not an untypical story.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, it's very true. So
I guess that's atypical, not untypical.
So any of you out there who feel like float tanks are suddenly ruling your life and you didn't even know about them a month ago, we were those people 8 years ago, Yeah.
It kind of just takes over.
It does. Yeah.
So thanks again so much for calling in, guys.
Thanks, guys.
It meant a lot to hear all of your voices too. I'm glad you got to do a big
I'm
conference
gonna
call.
stick around too. So if anyone wants to come in with a question, I'll be around for the next. I'll stick around for the next hour or so.
Okay, cool.
All right, perfect.
Awesome. Thanks, Flex.
Great talking to you, Ashkahn.
All right, great talking
Yeah.
to you guys.
Graham.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah. Have a good one.
And we have to switch out shirts again.
Yeah,
Hold on
one
sec. Headphones
moment.
off.
One moment,
Headphones
guys.
off. I feel like my mustache is just going to get wilder and wilder as I do this too. Every shirt that comes off kind of ruins its gel, so it should be like crazy cat style by the time we finish.
Are we ready for the next caller?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Go ahead. I'll fill Ashkahn in on what they say if they say anything.
No, I'm here.
Okay, we're both here.
So our next caller is Connor Nave.
Oh, Connor Nave.
I got a question for you, Connor.
Yeah, welcome. How you doing?
That wasn't good, but yeah, how are you doing? How are you doing? We'll start
What's going on, guys?
Hey.
I'm good. Very good.
Excellent.
Nice. Did you catch the intro that we did for you?
Yeah. Thank you. That was awesome. Yeah.
We weren't sure, and I kept forgetting to reach out. So I'm glad you called in so that we could ask you this very important question. Okay, next caller.
It turns Connor. It turns out there are only 2 words that rhyme with Nabe.
Did you know that?
Did you know that? We looked it up, and they're Babe and Astrolabe. Those are the only 2 words available to make a rhyme with your name. So we had to improvise a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool. It was impressive. Yeah.
Sorry, what was your question?
Yeah. So my question was, do you guys have any advice on how you manage your time? I mean, you guys run so many different businesses, from the Float Conference, the Float On, to Float Tank Solutions, the Float Helm, book publishing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I find that even just running one float center, it's hard to prioritize and find the most important thing that will result in kind of the most return on investment, so to speak. So.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good question. We both don't have much of a social life, so that helps.
It's almost like artificial deadlines, or like just creating deadlines seems to be a pretty big motivating factor for us. Like most of our projects have some sort of thing where they just have to be done by a certain point, like we had to get our shit together to make this live podcast happen. And the Float Conference, hundreds of people are about to show up in your town. And so you better have stuff ready. So that almost dictates what we do more than anything is pure necessity and almost struggling to keep up with the impending deadlines we've set for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost that we've made a lifestyle out of running Float On and our different projects. Like I mean, we get to work with a lot of our friends and people who we hire on who we didn't know beforehand. You know, we very much hire people for their personality and their ability to fit in addition to their competence. And so we often end up making friends with people we didn't even know before they came on board our organization. And at that point, it sort of feels like something you're doing in your free time, you know? I mean, like making these intros for the Daily Solutions podcast was a complete blast. And it's, you know, I mean, it is work technically, and it takes up time and takes time away from other things. But there is something nice about like almost not differentiating, for me at least. And I'm not going to speak for Ashkahn because, you know, who knows what's going on inside that head yet. But combining your work and playtime as much as possible and not saying now this is going to be playtime and now I have to go to work or something, you know, as much as you can kind of view all of your work as recreation time, I think is almost like a fun little mental trick to try and play on it. And of course that doesn't work when taxes come around. Like there are some things that just feel like work, but
we get a lot of help too. Like, you know, we get to be the ones sitting here, but there's a lot of people who help make all this stuff happen.
Yeah.
Usually, like we ask them to help us with one small thing, and then next thing they know, we've consumed every free waking hour in their lives with the things we're asking them to do. So that's typically how it goes when people start working for us.
Yeah. So I would assume there's a lot of you have to implement a lot of processes to kind of automate some parts of the businesses so you can focus on other things too. That might be part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another one that's interesting because it also takes a lot more time to get that stuff going than you think. So we've, at this point, because we've started so many projects, we can think like one step ahead now. And
not
realize,
2 steps sometimes.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, some of us can.
We're at least one step ahead.
Some of us can think 2 steps.
And so, you know,
Maybe
when
3 sometimes.
when we realize we got a project that we're doing, we have a thing in our brain now that goes like, okay, like let's get other people involved and trained.
Suckers, we call them.
Let's like reel some suckers in so that when we realize we don't have time to be doing this full time, there's already people in place to take over some of that stuff. So they're like, we do that a lot now. As soon as we start something, we start putting the pieces in place to, you know, have it kind of reduce the amount of burden it takes us personally. And then different people for different things. That way it's really like we used to have with all these different projects, kind of people working for us going between all of them, you know, and that ended up being really hard because of the exact question you asked. Like all of a sudden 2 projects have something extremely important that are due at the same time and one person is pulled in like multiple directions. So we realized that at some point and tried our best to kind of divide and conquer. So we have, you know, the people who work on Float Tank Solutions really only work on that. The people who work on the helm really only work on that. The people who work in our shop really only work on that. And we kind of have to jump between all of them. And so we take the brunt of things being crazy for us.
Yeah.
And even we kind of split projects up amongst ourselves too.
And rapid fire, here's a few other just like random productivity suggestions. Don't check your email first thing in the morning. Like don't check it until you've done important tasks that you need to do throughout the day. So like get your big chunk of work done, then go check your email when you're doing things. Write down the main thing that you want to get done the next day, the night beforehand. Wake up and eat a good breakfast, exercise in the morning. Make sure that you make time to actually go out and have coffee or lunch or dinner with people who you like. So don't just like spend the entire day in isolation working because that gets really hard. Like all of these things are little tricks almost that I play on myself.
I don't do any of those. Those are nice. Those are nice.
It's been really nice. Yeah. You know, and sometimes I manage to actually follow my own advice, but that is good advice to follow for productivity.
When you're feeling the crunch yourself, what do you feel like is constantly jumping up as a priority? Is it stuff in your float center where things are going wrong, or what do you think is the most like pulling you away from working on what you feel like you should be working on?
But I think the thing that I feel like I should be working on is marketing. That's probably the biggest thing. But what's taking me away from that is more. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't really have too many things that are taking me away. You know, we have a strong team and we have people who are kind of running the shop day to day and actually work like a 9 to 5 outside of the shop. So yeah, I guess I would say the 9 to 5 takes up a good chunk of my time. But then, you know, it's like I got to chunk off time that I can't focus just on the float center. So that would probably be the biggest one. But then there's not really anything in particular like, oh, just related to the float center that is taking me away from the higher priority thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should clearly quit your job. Like, we just live in a van on the side of a street. So,
sometimes just on the street.
Yeah. Well, lots of ramen. I mean, so that would be my suggestion.
Downscale, Yeah. I mean, working a full-time job would be distracting from running a float center. I could see.
Well, I have another one too, which is I feel like what was coming up.
A sentence,
What comes up a lot for us is, or what used to come up a lot for us is, when we would, when you have a float center, because you're a reservation-based business, if anything goes wrong with one of your float tanks, it's immediately a humongous emergency, right? I mean, like it like pushes everything aside because all of a sudden you're canceling on people, you're losing money. It becomes like a fire that needs to be put out right away. So we put a good amount of effort into trying to get other people trained up on how the filtration systems work and how to handle stuff like that. So when those emergencies do pop up, like we could maybe hop on the phone with that person for 10, 15 minutes, give them some like higher level advice and be there for questions, but they have to go stop what they're doing to go handle it. And I found that to be one of the things that definitely helped me actually stick to a priority I had set, was not having that priority immediately shoved aside by something going wrong with one of the float tanks.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you should probably quit your job is really what I think that's the main lesson we've taken away here.
That's the takeaway there.
That's the takeaway. Quit your job, move out of your house.
Actually, I have one more tiny thing too, which I don't think Ashkahn does, but correct me if I'm wrong. I like to, like, once every 3 to 6 months, spend a week just like tracking my time. So I have a little just sort of like time tracker on my phone that you can start different projects and time what you're doing. And it's really interesting. I mean, you become immediately more aware just through the act of tracking, but reviewing a week of solid just, whether you're reading a book or whether you're browsing online or whatever you're doing, actually try as best you can to kind of track that down to the minute. And I mean, making tweaks on your own life based on that is a great way to learn how you're spending your time and, what areas that you're actually losing time you might not want to be.
I did that once.
It was a good one. I like
depressing.
that. Yeah.
It's depressing.
It was, I realized too many truths about myself.
Spending an hour tracking my time during this week. Like, what a waste. Awesome.
And then I got another question if you guys got a minute.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Okay. So this question is around bartering, and I know that you guys do barter at Float On, but I was wondering, do you allow your employees or non-owners to also barter things?
Yeah, good question.
To like set up barters with people, or to like receive the goods that come from that?
I guess to receive the goods that come from that.
We try to make most of our barters kind of available to everybody at our shop. So like we have a system where we barter with people and then we put everything we get from those barters into a spreadsheet, which we call our barter booty.
Barter booty.
And then people just put their initials next to things as they go claim them. So it's kind of like everything just goes into a big pot.
Treasure chest is how we like to picture it. Yeah.
And then it's kind of accessible to all the people at our shop. Sometimes it's not exact. Like I'll go get a haircut and just give the person a float and get a haircut sometimes. So not everything is quite going through that full system, but most things are. And we definitely allow our employees to use things to set up barters.
Yep.
We actually have a person who's in charge of barters in our shop who specifically goes out and tries to set up more of them and get them going.
Yep, got a task generator in the helm for find a barter mark. Like who's the next person we want to try and track down? Sort of like a wish list. It's like, just like who wants to go on a wine tour? We have a winery who comes and floats with us. We should work out some kind of barter or. Yeah.
So we're all about it. Yeah, we
yeah.
think it's a cool perk of the job working at Float On as you get these barters coming in. There's kind of a tax and legal side of it that we won't get into right now.
But just know, there are ramifications of all of that.
So you can do it all totally legit and over the table and all that sort of stuff, and it's all totally fine. But yeah, for us, definitely, we absolutely want our barters to be as open and shared with everyone as we can.
Yeah, and another thing I guess that also motivates a lot of how we do fringe benefits for our staff is that, it would be really nice if we could pay people more than we can running a float center. And staffing is by far the biggest expense, as anyone out there listening running a float center knows. And it I think makes it more worthwhile. Like, we've definitely had people leave higher paying jobs to come work for Float On because it's their passion. And I think they haven't left because they have all these other nice benefits. They can float all the time. They can take advantage of things that we trade for. You know, like if you're the kind of person who like goes to yoga every morning and you want to make floating part of your routine, go 3 times a week, all of a sudden the fact that you're taking less pay but get all of those things for free kind of balances out what's going on. So yeah, I like just tossing anything into that fringe benefit category is very much our MO, and bartering fits right in there.
And I'd go as far as to say, which I feel like is maybe the question you were asking, is
we were answering something.
No,
else?
I think I understand. Like, even if one of our employees were to just go on their own, trade a float for, you know, a giant pie or something, and eat it all themselves.
1/10 of a mechanical bull.
Yeah, and just do the trade themselves, give them float, take the thing, consume it or whatever, I would still be okay with that.
Yep.
So even if it's not going into kind of a collective bin or anything like that, if they're just out there and they manage to do some sort of trade to trade a float for something, that's cool in my book.
And we've never put a limit on that, but we've also never had to. Like, we haven't had anyone abuse that system before, so. There's kind of just this mutual respect that happens, I think, when you really trust people with open-ended bargains like that.
I mean, it's kind of hard, too. It's kind of hard to go wild with bartering because you have to convince other people out there to trade you stuff for floats. Like, it's a difficult thing to just go recklessly trade people stuff for, because, you know, it takes a little work and only so many people are into it and stuff like that.
All right, hopefully that answered your question. Did we do okay? Scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, no, that was great. Yeah, probably a 9.5. How about that?
That's pretty You're good. Being nice. You're being generous.
Yeah. And
I appreciate it.
If anyone
It's
listening, episode 342 was the other barter episode. So that's kind of where I got the idea for this.
You're hired, Connor. Boom. Yeah. That's nice. I like that.
Hired for the podcast that is stopping, right?
Yeah, sorry,
your
you're
last
also
paycheck
fired.
will come in just a couple minutes.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for calling in, Connor. It was great hearing your voice.
Absolutely. Good luck with that astrolabe.
See you later, babe.
All right. Who's our next caller here?
I think that we have Heather Clift on the phone, but she's been having some technical issues, so we'll see if we can get her on.
All right. You out there, Heather?
All right, I got to put another shirt on. 1 second.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can totally hear you. She says that she's there, and she was wondering if we could hear her.
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Through me. I'm sort of his channel right now. Ashkahn will be putting on a shirt, but that's fine. We can just kick it. How are things going over there, Heather?
They're good. Crazy busy. I'm calling from my car on my way home from work, actually.
Oh, nice. Is that why Paul's not with you?
Paul is actually meeting the contractors for Samana in Fort Collins. So
exciting.
That's pretty cool.
All right, so let's give a little background. Yeah. What's your float center, and how long have you been open there, Heather?
And your favorite color?
Yeah, and your favorite color.
And my favorite color?
Yeah.
My favorite color is orange.
Orange.
And
it's good. Like a burnt orange or kind of like a light?
It's even harder to rhyme
than
yellowish
orange.
Kind of like a tangerine orange.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Like a true orange.
Uh-huh. Well, that's offensive to the other oranges, but I see what you're saying.
Like a Donald Trump orange. You know, that color.
Okay, yeah, I can see the appeal.
But my float center is Samana Float Center in Denver, Colorado, and we'll be open 3 years in May.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, congratulations too.
Thanks. Yeah, we're pretty excited about our new little baby. It's crazy. crazy.
Yeah, so what's your question? How can we help out? Or pretend to help?
Or pretend to help. Well, I didn't really have much of a question. I do have, actually, I was a little nervous because I was like, what am I going to ask? I don't even know. And then it came to me, how do you guys feel, or what is your opinion, or ideas, I guess I should say as well, about salary versus hourly, especially for like managers, because I'm going to need a manager in Samana, Denver, as I take over Samana, Fort Collins.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've answered that question either.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a good one. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say an answer, but you can go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah?
Yeah, you got it.
I think we're probably fans of hourly.
It's certainly what we do.
And we've tried salary as well. And it's a couple things. One is that float centers they just kind of suck you in, you know, like you like, oh, maybe I should go home now, you know, it's a reasonable time of night, and then like ka-slam, like the pump is leaking. And so I feel like when people are on salary, there's a very easy tendency to be way overworked. And I feel like when you're on hourly, at least you're getting paid for that. So I think it makes, I would say, people probably feel better on hourly because of the demands of the float center than they would on salary. And then there's kind of a legal side of it too. You know what I'm talking about?
You mean like if they actually do go overtime on salary, you still have to pay them overtime?
Right.
Like, so it's not like you're just getting them at this set rate, and then even if they're working 80-hour weeks instead of 40, so that is a thing. I was asking the clarifying question, but answering it at the same time there, which is, just paying someone salary, you still have to pay them overtime if they're working more than 40 hours, and they really should be tracked.
Yeah, and it's based on an income amount. So this changed, I think, like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. There was always a law that was in effect that said...
By the way, we're not professional HR professionals, so definitely consult one.
But I am a lawyer, so you can take this all as legal advice. It's not true. There's a law that says if you make less than a certain amount per year on salary, then you still have to be paid overtime. And that law used to be set for... I can't remember what it was. It was pretty high. Like it was something like 50,000 or more or something like that. And they changed the law to make it so that a couple of years ago to make it so that the barrier was much less. So the other way around. Like if you got any less than 50,000 a year, all of a sudden you still had to be paid for overtime. So it means that if you're paying someone a salary less than, you should look up the real number, but I think it's something like 50,000. If you're paying someone less than that per year as their salary, then they still need to be tracking all of their hours, and you still need to be paying them overtime as an hourly employee. So like they don't even really get the benefit of being salaried, where they don't have to like keep this kind of meticulous record of all their time or anything like that.
Okay.
And so it kind of changed the balance, I think, for a lot of people considering salary versus hourly. If they were, unless you're paying people, like $70,000 a year or something like that, which is maybe not what I was picturing.
That would be awesome.
That would be cool.
If I made 70.
Yeah, if you do, send a little extra our way too, So at Float On, at least everyone who works the shop is hourly right now. I'm not lying, right? That's true.
Okay.
That is true.
Yeah. I thought so. I had the feeling of truthiness.
Yeah. I wouldn't have said if you were lying anyway, so don't worry about it.
Wait,
okay.
Am I lying?
Yeah, we're on hourly too. Well, then there's part two of my question. So, and I don't want to come off sounding like I'm being cheap or anything, but where does somebody max out as to what you pay hourly as well? Because I'm kind of at the point with one of my employees who's been with me almost since the beginning, and I pay her, $16 an hour, and I'm like, I don't know. That's where the salary came up, because I do want her to take over a little bit more responsibilities, and I'll definitely compensate for that. But I don't know what the cap is on that. You know what I mean? Like, is there there's only so much you can do at the float center. Am I making sense with that question?
Yeah, I mean, you sound kind of cheap when you ask it, but I'll try to get over that.
So what do you, and you've been giving kind of regular raises, like it didn't start at 16, obviously, so it's kind of been building slowly to that point. Oh, you still there? We got you, Heather?
Oh, I'm here. Sorry, I might have lost you there for a second.
Yeah. I was just asking if it's been slowly building with that 16 an hour. Like it didn't start at 16, obviously.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I start at 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
So, I mean, in some sense, there's a good justification for paying people more the longer they've been with you, right? Like they're just more and more valuable people to have on your team when they have the kind of breadth of knowledge that they have, and they're reliable. And, everyone knows from their experience trying to hire people, how hard it is to hire good people. So you really want to hold on to the ones that you have.
Preferably put one of those little anklets around them that you can like track them, and they're not allowed to leave the center without an alarm going off, kind of thing.
But it's a hard question to know how much you can actually afford. I mean, you can run the numbers. That's what we'll do if we're considering raising people's pay. I'll just like look at a kind of maybe two example payrolls and try to just see how much more annually it would cost for me to bump them up. And so that gives you some real numbers to look at. And often it's like, hey, it's like $1 more or $2 more an hour might be reasonable once you actually see what it is in terms of an annual increase. So that's kind of one thing that has helped me. I will say our kind of top manager at Float On is getting paid 2150
right around there,
something
between
like
2150 and 2250. Yeah.
So there, that you can use that as an example of the fact that we're still in business and we are paying someone that level.
Okay.
It is also like that's where we want our money to go lots of times. Like opening Float On, one of our goals is, I think for a lot of float centers out there, because you float all the time and think about how you treat people, it's like you want to treat your staff as good as you can treat them. And it's almost unfortunate we can't pay everyone that amount. Like I would love if we could even pay our manager more in the like $35 range, and like our staff got $20 an hour or something like that. Just looking at Ashkahn to see if you thought it was crazy.
Right.
But of course, the nature of a float business is that you can't really pay those wages without charging like $120 per float or something like that. So, another thing that goes
colluded as an industry.
Yeah, if we could somehow like fix the price of floats.
Good idea.
So one other thing that we do, we're very into transparency. And when it seems like our staff wants a raise, or when it just feels like it's time to be giving certain workers or kind of all of them a blanket raise, we have a discussion with them, and we just talk about, hey, here's where we're at with Float On, and here's how much money we're making. Here's what it would do if we gave you the raise.
Do you see why we can't pay you more?
Yeah. Do you understand?
Suck it up. Like, look at these numbers.
But actually laying that out and being like, we would take a loss if we gave everyone $1 raise. Like our margins are not as big as maybe you think that they are, I think is always a really nice conversation, because there is this instinct from people who are working for you and see the income side of things coming in, where if you don't share expenses, they just assume there's almost like a treasure trove of money that's in the profit margin that's sitting there that you're deciding not to share by giving people a raise. And like giving a little dose of reality, I think often just kind of puts you on the same team. Yeah.
And we go.
We've kind of started doing that. We kind of started like filling them in, letting them know, what it costs to run a float center, how much it costs us per float, so, and we're trying to do more like profit sharing, whereas we'll pay a commission for every membership that gets sold, things like that. So we're trying to like let them know, like, we're here to support you, and Christmas bonuses, we do that every year. But yeah, it was just interesting. And I mean, we were looking at the numbers too for payroll and salary and what we have to make. And I was just thinking about that when I was driving and what my question would be. And it was, like salary seems like it would make more sense. But then, hearing your guys' take on it, that also makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, financially, salary would cost you more, because you're going to be paying at minimum a 40-hour work week, even if they work less than 40, and you're going to pay overtime if they go over 40. So unless you're paying someone over that, whatever that cap number is, which is like 50-something thousand, there's almost no way for salary to save you money financially.
Right.
And like by design will cost you more.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy.
Okay. That is crazy. I didn't know that. So I guess I should read up on my labor laws.
Yeah, what you should definitely do is consult a professional.
Yeah, I might be wrong about all that. Like, I probably am.
And half the time we just make stuff up. It just sounds good, and we don't want to disappoint the viewers. So,
well, I got one more crazy idea for you, which is we've gone as far as beyond once we've made things transparent and opened the books and everything like that. I've even gone as far as having a conversation with like our shop manager and other people to help them kind of understand the finances, and then ultimately left it up to them what their salary or what their hourly rate would be. So like we kind of discussed it. I helped out in the discussion, and then I left it and I was like, okay, well, it's up to you guys. Like, you guys kind of know as much as I know now, so you decide what you want it to be. And that's our current rates that we pay people were not decided by either of us. They were decided by our like main manager and our kind of sub managers. And that's kind of cool too, because it makes it feel a little like even if they're getting paid less, they understand and they made that decision, and it just gives people a little bit more kind of ownership over the situation.
Yeah, and if they come back and they just want to like get paid $10 an hour more, and your business would take a huge loss, then shows where their priorities are, and you can fire them.
Which doesn't have, it's just the reality of the situation.
That's because they know what would happen.
Yeah, there's an underlying regimen of fear that goes into all of this.
I mean, all of our actions, really. Yeah. Cool.
Right, you're totally right.
But you and Paul agree to that. You know to make your staff fear you. Yeah.
Iron fist.
Well, yeah, and that is they're priceless. I mean, when you get someone that cares about it and your float center and loves it, then yeah, I mean, it is priceless. And I'm with you guys. I wish I could pay myself. That would be awesome.
Yeah. That would be cool.
But
yeah.
It's like it's like putting the oxygen mask on them first.
Oh man, awesome. Well, thanks so much for. Are you gonna tell another joke? We got time for another joke. Did you have a knock joke for us?
Wait a second. I think we're doing that backwards. I think you're supposed to put on us first.
Yeah, it's never made sense to me in the video either. I'm like, no, that's not how I would do that.
We were way off, Paul. We gotta reevaluate everything.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again so much
that was my question. So thank you. I appreciate.
Good luck out there.
Yeah.
How are you guys? Are you guys well?
Yeah, we're doing great.
We're doing great.
We just got this podcast thing we're doing right now, so that's been going pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not much other than that. I mean,
yeah. Did you want to
kind of chilling?
Yeah, you want to just chat for a while?
Yeah.
Our producer's looking at us like we're crazy right now. I guess we have other callers we're supposed to get to or something.
We have to get to them, I guess.
All right. Thanks so much for calling, Heather. You're the best. We could talk to you forever as well.
Awesome. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you soon, Heather. Give a big hug to Paul.
I will.
And give him
Bye,
a
guys.
noogie for me.
All right. I think we have someone lined up next.
Can I just before Juliet announces this next person, I just want to say that my dream of basically becoming Frasier is becoming true over the course of this, and I'm really happy that Juliet is announcing these people for us as our own personal.
Oh yeah,
rise.
it's time for me to take off another shirt too.
I do want to point out that Ashkahn is way behind on the shirt game.
Oh my god. Okay. 1 second.
Like 2 shirts behind.
I know, it's just getting kind of hot in here.
Yeah, that's how I started, buddy. Remember how I started with all the shirts on? We knew this would happen. I'd get more comfortable throughout the show, and you'd get less comfortable. Yeah. All right, I'm listening. So the important half is all
Our next
ears.
caller is Brett.
Did you say Brett or Brent?
Brett. B-R-E-T-T. How are you guys?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Brett. Yeah, good to hear you.
Yeah, you too. I've been using your podcast for a while now. I've got my own private float tank at home.
Oh, nice.
I live in Australia. And
Excellent.
I'm an ex-military, so I use it a fair bit. But I've got dramas with fiberglass pimples starting where the lid hits the base of the tank and also starting over the lid. Is there any way to stop that from happening at all?
Fiberglass pimples. Uh-huh.
So like
bubbling.
Yeah, and this is just only about like a millimeter or two big, or like sort of smaller ones?
A millimeter or two big, and they're just it's just taken off around the whole lid.
Interesting. Yeah, and so that and do they end up popping, or are they just kind of blistery? Like they kind of pop.
Does
and
it have a
reveal the
crack
fiberglass
or-
underneath, or? Oh, I think we might have lost an audio signal there. You still there, Britt?
I'll just be Brett.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they crack sometimes.
Yeah, you're there.
Oh yeah, there we go.
That's good.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so we were just asking if they if the bubbles kind of end up like popping or revealing the raw fiberglass underneath, or do they just kind of stay bubbly and pimply?
They haven't popped, so they just stay in that pimple format.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's good.
So don't. It's kind of like with regular pimples. Don't pop them.
You don't want to pop them.
Don't pop those. It'll leave a scar.
Fair enough.
Yeah. You know, this is an issue that comes up.
It's definitely not the first time we've heard it.
Yeah, and from many manufacturers, it's I mean, I think those curved surfaces. So what it is, it's your actual gel coat delaminating for some reason from the actual fiberglass that's underneath it there. And so were you to kind of pop those bubbles or pick away at them, you'd see just the raw fiberglass sitting there underneath, which you don't usually want the water getting access to.
And it's just because fiberglass is hard. Like it's not like the easiest material to work with. It's not the easiest material to have kind of perfection with. There's a lot that goes into like the curing, and there's a lot of stuff where things look fine at the beginning, and 1 year, 2 years later, you may see issues like this pop up that had to do with who knows what, like an imperfection in the materials or not enough time curing or whatever it may be. So it's not.
It's not your fault.
Yeah, you've been doing nothing wrong. You're all good.
And there's not like a face wash you can put on there to prevent it either. So
you've been feeding the float tank the wrong things. So I mean, I would probably start by contacting the manufacturer. There's a chance that they may just realize that they maybe had a month where this was happening from the fiberglass manufacturer, and they have some sort of solution or can replace those pieces or something like that. That would definitely be my first go-to.
And I guess you said it was a home tank. I assume it is a manufactured tank.
Yes, it is.
So that's one option.
I don't really want to name the name of the manufacturer, but
sure, no, that's fine. Option 2 is we've had this happen to us from these custom-made tubs that
we made our own tubs that did this, so we had no one to blame really.
Yeah, we had no manufacturer to call. Yeah, it was just our fault. And you can get a company to come in. The final step, if nothing else works, by contacting manufacturers or something else, is you can have a fiberglass company come in and put a new gel coat layer on, like basically sand that stuff down, deal with those imperfections, and then do another gel coat layer over the entire thing.
Yep, or not even over the entire tank too. You can kind of do
just
spot
patch.
Gel coating. You almost always see where the two meet, right? When you're putting this new layer on, but. You can also, especially if they start actually cracking or popping, and you really don't want water getting into that fiberglass underneath the gel coat. So at that point, again, if the manufacturer hasn't kind of stepped up or offered a solution, then take matters into your own hands and find a company that can come in there and at least get something that's waterproof on there, so you don't have to worry about damaging your tank more.
Yeah, because then you can, basically the biggest downside is it won't really look that pretty. It's very hard to make it look super nice when you're doing kind of patchwork like that, and it won't be as strong as if it had been done without air kind of to begin with. And it takes time. Well, for you with a tank in your house, maybe this isn't as important, but for like a float center, it might take a week between when they put the stuff on and when it's properly cured to put water and salt back in it. So your float tank's down for a little bit is another result of it.
But
and
go ahead.
That's so cool. And how often do you have to replace the UV lights in them?
That depends. Before I answer that, let me say one last thing about the fiberglass, which is I think there's also an option. I've never really seen someone do this, but you could get a liner. You can make a custom liner for your system and put it in there too, as long as you. That's maybe an option. Just to throw that out there as a possibility.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
UV lights, it's a little hard to talk about UV in generalities because so much of it depends on the equipment itself, the manufacturer, how they built it, what components it has, how powerful it is, all that sort of stuff, right? So there's not really one, you can't just say replace all UV lights in this time period. It's just really not one of those things where you can kind of say an overarching truth about that. That being said, typically the most typical thing you hear, you should contact the manufacturer of the UV, but typically you hear about 1 year, and even that can be a little bit different, and it's like why you're replacing it can be for different reasons. There's stuff in the bulb that gets kind of used up as it functions. That's why these things have lamp lives. I'm probably going to be wrong about all the specifics I say here, but there's something like mercury that's being heated up to do a certain something in the bulb that gets depleted over time. Like that's one way that your system will need replacing. There's also like the actual point where the bulb connects with the rest of the unit that could wear out over time by being turned on and off and on and off. So that's a reason that you could need to replace a bulb. I think they can, even if they don't immediately stop working, they can diminish in how powerful they are, or they can over time possibly take longer to heat up to the point where they're doing their effective dose. So you might get a fresh bulb that takes a minute to get to the point where it's putting out the proper amount of UV, but a year later it might take 15 minutes, right? So for a commercial center, those are really big differences. For your place at home, definitely a solution you have if your bulb is going longer is to just run it longer. Like that is certainly something that can help at least some of the issues that can come up with bulb degradation. But honestly, contact the manufacturer of the UV system, and they'll be able to give you a lot more specifics about the unit you actually have.
And one thing to mention when you get a hold of them too is definitely say that you're going to be turning this thing on and off multiple times. Like, that is a way that we use UV that's a lot different than how many other people use them. When they're in spas or pools, typically the UV is just always on and always has a flow going through it, except under special circumstances. So when you're asking for bulb life, mentioning that there's kind of this on-off action that's taking place will help them give you a more intelligent response.
For you, are you just using this tank yourself in your house, or you have?
Yeah, it's just myself and my partner.
Okay, so I mean, you might have an easier time with this. First of all, just a tank in your home, there's just a little less concern about sanitation stuff because you're not kind of exposing the general public to things. But also, a lot of UV lights are intended to be turned on and off maybe one time a day, because a lot of pools will like shut down for the night and turn their system back on in the day. So if you're floating daily, even that may be within the kind of operating expectancies that the manufacturer has for their system. So just kind of explain your situation, and you probably have an easier time with this than definitely a commercial float center does, where they have a limited time to do transitions and they have a lot of floats happening in a day. That's where this UV stuff can get a lot more tricky. So if you could run your system for like an hour every day or 2 hours, and you're only doing it once a day, like, you're kind of alleviating a lot of the potential trickiness that comes with UV.
Yep, that makes sense.
Cool. Well, yeah, good questions. Your UV unit isn't making any weird noises by chance, is it?
Graham really wants someone to make a weird noise on this podcast so he can try to diagnose it.
That is true. That is exactly what I want. So, this is your chance if you have any weird noises your pump system's making.
They don't really make weird noises.
You could be a hero.
Like laser beam sounds or something?
My line's running really smoothly, sorry.
Okay, it's probably doing fine then. Yeah, that's a professional diagnosis.
Good analysis there, Graham.
Thanks. Cool. Well, thanks so much for calling in. Excellent questions. And I think we have someone else lined up here. So, have a great one over there.
Yeah.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Put another shirt on.
Oh, yeah, you definitely need to put another shirt on. So we did have another caller, but we just lost them. Uh-oh. We do still have Flux on the line, though. And we can check back in.
And if you're out there listening, that means that someone else is going to be trying to reconnect. But definitely head over to floatanksolutions.com/call DSP, and you can hop on the air with us if you have your own questions. So, hey, Flux, thanks for hanging out there in the background. Hopefully you don't mind hearing us yammer on too much.
No, it's great. I'm just grading papers.
That's great. Do you mean you're grading us as we go along, or students?
Well, yeah, I mean that's on one side of my desk, and the other side of my desk is my students. But
Excellent. So I actually had a question for you, Flux. Now that you've gotten into the world of floating and we've dragged you into our legion, how often do you float? Like, what's your own floating regimen?
I float every Monday at 9 p.m.
Nice.
Yeah. It is the earliest I can get out of work usually.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You're doing 2 PhDs, right?
It's a dual PhD, yeah, neuroscience and clinical psych. Yeah. But I do a lot of research. So
yeah, I imagine so. Cool. And what's have you noticed that they've? Well, actually, I had another follow-up question. How many times have you floated total now, roughly, if you don't know the exact number?
No, I can give you the exact number.
You seem like the kind of person who could. Yeah,
I'm just checking records here.
Let's see. we can go to the float column of my tracking sheet.
Excellent.
And let's see, where are we? Here we go. Float sessions, summary. I have floated 15 times.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great. And have you noticed them kind of changing over time? Like now that you're getting up kind of above the dozen mark?
Oh, no, absolutely. I have very different experiences depending on when I'm floating. I have the float sessions that are like just, pure kind of sensory awareness. And I have the ones where I do a lot more thinking and then the ones where I fall asleep.
And they do an hour and a half out there, right? So you're doing an hour and a half float when you go in?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, 90 minutes. I feel spoiled whenever I try and recommend people and we look up who's in their area and I see some of the 60-minute float centers. I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's good. I actually even know people who do 30-minute float sessions who completely swear by it and say their clients
say they're very popular.
Totally love it. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of all over. I don't know anyone who does longer than 90 minutes for the default.
At like
only? I do. Yeah, Crash.
Oh yeah,
he does 2 hours. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think what I'm really interested in is the compounding effect of floats, which is why this new clinical trial is so intriguing because it's just you can see in my own personal data that after doing this a couple of times, things just start to level out. And I mean, I'm one person, so I really want to see what it looks like in a bunch of people. So,
how many floats are going to be done per person in the study?
I believe it is 6.
Okay. Over what sort of time period?
It depends. So one arm is once a week, and one arm is a bit more variable depending on the person. So it's I think I forget exactly how we have it, but they have a certain amount of time to do it.
That's really cool. To be honest, that's been some of the stuff I'm most eager to see come out of research is the really long-term effects of floating and even beyond that, like being able to do more longitudinal studies that are, even a year of someone floating every week for a year compared to a control group that doesn't. Like I cannot wait until we have the kind of bandwidth with funding in a lab to get up to that level. But 6 floats is awesome. That'll be really cool data to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much we need to know. And I mean, really, like I was saying earlier, like this is about making this legitimate and getting more people interested. And because the more, government funded research that we get out there, the more people are going to pay attention and the more we could get other research labs working on this. So
yeah, for sure.
As you've been telling people that you're going to start working on this float tank thing, what does everyone think you've gone crazy, or what's been
it's
like
flux.
the general
People probably
response?
knew he was crazy.
That's true.
Everyone knows I'm crazy.
They probably were expecting it from you.
I think I start just speaking science at them until they're like, "Oh, you're serious."
I guess I've always been curious in the scientific community, like as a researcher, when you present floating to other researchers, is there like a particularly common piece of skepticism you get back? Like, is there like a natural reaction that people find it kind of skeptical to begin with?
Yeah, well, I think everyone's skeptical. And I think what I usually first do is I'm like, look, there's this amazing clinical trial that shows that this can fight anxiety. I was like, it is published, you can see it. And, now we're working to figure out that on a biological level. And, we've got some pilot data that's really promising. And that's when I just start naming cytokines and talk about cortisol, and then they either get really interested or they walk away and they're like, oh, I guess he knows what he's talking about.
This float thing must be very legitimate, twisting their mustaches. Yeah. Awesome. And it looks like we might have gotten the other caller back. So thanks for hopping on and doing some more questions with us.
Yeah, you can
Flex.
just keep hanging out there.
I'll stick around. So just let me know.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
A little background flex.
And for our next caller, we have our very own Dana Heifel.
Oh, what's up? Nice.
All right,
From
Dana from Portland, Oregon.
Yeah,
Welcome.
Hey, Dana.
Awesome. Hi. I'm just calling to say thank you guys because I love listening to it. You guys make me smile every day. It's awesome.
Well, thanks, Dana. Yeah, I appreciate that. And what's the name of your float center, and how long have you been open for?
My business name is Float North, and I've been open for 4 months, coming up December 4th.
Exciting.
Yeah.
How's it been going?
It's been going great. Yeah. We did a Pay What You Wish day, and that went really well.
Cool.
Hopefully, I'm not too echoey. Sorry, I've got a silly mic, but
at least on our end, you're good. Yeah. I don't know about the audience, but who cares about them anyway? Yeah, this is about us.
Yeah, it was crazy. We were 100% booked. I ran around like a chicken with no head. It was intense.
That's awesome. Do you know what the average amount that people paid was?
Too. That's what I was.
Yeah, the average was $40.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did anyone? I have another follow-up question.
Did anyone pay nothing?
But and what was the highest amount that anyone
these
paid?
are also the questions I have in my mind.
The highest was 85, which is our like standard, like just one float out off the bat price.
Okay, so no one was like $500 or something like that.
No. And then everybody else would have had to pay $0 to average out to 40. But yeah, everybody was really appreciative. It was a cool thing.
Cool.
That's really cool. And $40 is really not bad for an average amount coming in.
No.
Yeah.
Like if you take the average, if you look at our numbers and take the average per float, we get it across all our memberships and discounts and all that
and
stuff.
us floating for free.
And us, it's about 40 something.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Huh. Yeah.
That's very cool. Did anyone pay $0?
No. One person paid 10. That was the lowest.
Okay.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay.
A lot of people came in and like paid for their partner, so they would give like it was like a 2-for-1 in their mind. So they just would pay something. Yeah.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I bet people were super appreciative.
Yeah, it was awesome, and most of the people had never floated before, so like that was a lot more work for me, but also it was really cool to get to expose a lot of people to floating.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Do you think that was because specifically like the pay what you will kind of lured them in? Like they were people on the fence and thinking about this for a while, and they were finally like, okay, like I'll pull the trigger on this day.
I do. Yeah, I think that's exactly why. There were a number of people that paid $20 or things like that. I did a promotion on Instagram and it just exploded, and my schedule was full in like less than 24 hours.
Wow. That would be my suspicion.
Yeah, it went really well.
Yeah, that's really cool. We should just do that for 2 a.m. Like pay what you want 2 a.m.s.
Yeah.
You know,
that would be interesting.
Is that your hardest time to fill?
Yeah.
On like weeknights, especially. Yeah. Like Tuesday at 2 in the morning is definitely our kind of least popular time on our schedule. But, you know, people still come.
Yeah. I can't imagine doing a 24-hour thing. That sounds like way too much for me.
It's pretty crazy. I can't really imagine it either.
Yeah, fortunately we have people running that for us now, so
I know,
we just have to lay down the dictate that they need to keep open 24 hours a day and then wipe our hands a bit and walk away.
Yeah. I wish I had a specific question, but I don't.
I got questions for you. How's you just started the massage side of things too?
That's been going the whole time.
Oh, it has. Okay.
Yeah.
They just said their open pool. You just got that going.
I thought I just saw an email where you personally just started doing
me
massages
personally, yeah.
Okay,
so I
saw.
stepped away. I've been a massage therapist for 10 years, but I stepped away in order to start the business.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, I can start to see 1 or 2 people here and there. But yeah, we opened up the open pool about a month ago, and that's been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks beautiful too. That's a really nice nice open air setup you got there.
And have you
you
used your loading dock yet? Because for those of you that don't know, Dana has a loading dock in her float center with 2 loading bays. It's just absurdly awesome, and I'm super jealous.
I can't wait to turn it into like a swimming pool or something. I've used the loading dock a few times for pallets of salt, like when I ruined a whole pallet of salt. I had to find another one.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for calling in, Dana. And congratulations on being open and getting everything going. It's great to have you in town.
Yeah, thanks. I really like being part of the community, and you guys are freaking awesome.
Yeah, the Float Mafia.
Yeah. All right.
Well, take care. Yep. Thanks again, Dana. And see you very soon. Come over to float with you soon. Yeah. And it looks like we have another caller.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that it's t-shirt time.
Oh my god.
Yep. Final t-shirt time.
Final t-shirt time.
I love that.
And our next caller is Larry.
Just one more, buddy.
It's getting really hot in here.
That's how it started. This is welcome to my world.
If I pass out.
And hi, Larry, you're on the air.
Okay, hey.
I'm getting kind of lightheaded.
How's it going, Larry?
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Larry McCubbin from Healing Waters in Westminster, Colorado.
Oh, wonderful. Great to hear you.
How are you guys doing?
Great. I'm doing perfect. Yeah, I'm on my last t-shirt out of like 10 that I had on, so feeling nice and cool over here. Ashkahn's doing great too. He's doing spectacular, yeah.
Hey, rumor has it you guys are coming to Denver for the Float Conference?
Yeah, we are going to be heading to Denver for the Float Conference. It's looking like. Yeah,
Oh,
and I'll let
far out.
Ashkahn's
It sure saved me.
the man behind that one, so I'll let him kind of tackle most of this.
Yeah. What's the question? Is are we going to the Float Conference?
No, where are we moving it to? They heard that we were moving it to Denver. It wasn't actually even a question yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's gonna be exciting. It's the first time it's ever been anywhere
Yeah,
other than Portland.
It'll sure save us some money.
Oh, great! Yeah, that's why we did it.
though
I
love
was mostly
coming-
looking out for you.
Even though I love coming to Portland, but are you guys going to be doing like the tours like you did in Portland, where you're going to be visiting some of our float centers here in Denver?
Yeah, I would definitely like to. It's certainly on the agenda to figure out. I think it's really fun. Like getting to
and a
tour
lot of
the
people get
different
a lot
places.
out of it too. Like people
Yeah.
who have never really like gotten to see a bunch of float centers and are thinking about opening, getting to actually get the behind the scenes tour from a bunch of places is great. So
We'll do our best. In Portland, we found a double-decker bus that let us serve beer on it. So I don't
Classic
know if we'll
Portland.
be able to find that same thing in every city we go to. So it might be more of a normal bus, but we'll certainly do our darndest.
Well, we do have a marijuana tour bus
Really?
here in Denver.
Okay.
They
Well, we'll
just
just
got
do
in a
that.
little bit of trouble, and I don't know what's going on with it.
Just crashed into a snack store.
Well, I guess they got pulled over the other day, and I don't know, something about that. The city of Denver said it was illegal for this to be happening, and they're fighting over this. So if they can straighten that out, I'll see what I can do to hook that up.
Okay. Yeah, they got a couple months, so.
Okay. Well, the question I've got for you guys is, I know you guys have been talking with Lisa and giving her some advice on using social media and stuff. My question is, we definitely have, we don't have Groupon like we used to, but we still have Groupon. Lisa and I have been in disagreement sometimes on how much when these Groupon people come in, these Groupon people that come in, how much you want to be pushy and what do you guys do with Groupon people that come in? Do you just let them kind of ask about it, or how far do you push?
When customers are coming in who on a Groupon, like
Right.
how far do we push to try to sell them
Groupon
something else?
Yeah, bring them on as members. or
to get them to get them back in the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, not like essentially we treat most of our customers the same, and for Grouponers, it's in that category as well. I'd say the one difference, and this applies also when we do our own discounts, so internal discounts on gift cards. Like right now throughout December, we're going to be running a big kind of holiday discount that goes the entire month. And whether it would be some of those people coming in or someone from Groupon, we always like the pitch of you can apply the full value towards a membership, which in our case means, maybe they bought a Groupon at half off or 2/3 the price or whatever it is. But, and our floats are $77, so they can apply the full $77 towards getting a membership.
So yeah, we do have like a premeditated
Right.
kind of upsell that is hopefully specifically appealing to people coming in on a Groupon.
Or a discount of kind of any kind, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, we don't really treat the Groupon customers any differently or like target them with, specifically trying to like make sure to always hit hard with the Grouponers to make sure we pitch them because they got this discount. And, at least in Portland, and I guess we haven't done any really hard tracking on this, but like our Grouponers haven't been more difficult customers. Like I don't feel like They also tend to be only bargain shoppers. We definitely have had Groupon people who become regular members, and
yeah, it was enough to get them in the first time, and then they realized they really liked it, and definitely.
Yeah, so for us, I think we've also just had really good luck with kind of our Groupon customers, at least, which I've heard elsewhere in the industry is not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you guys have been running a regular Groupon for a while. Do you guys find that there's much difference from the customers coming in on a Groupon versus just your regular everyday floaters?
Groupon has really, and I don't know, Denver's a big populated area, and you think you'd never run out of Groupon people, but it seems like when we first opened, and I think it was 2013, I think it was, I'm not sure. When we first opened, we were really bombarded with Groupon. But it's probably about, I'd say 25% of what we used to get off of Groupon. So it's not that big of a thing, but it is still important to us because it gets people that, in Denver, there's a lot of people of course, this is everywhere. You mention the word floating and they look at you like deer in the headlights,
Yeah.
But it's just I'm really for repeat. It's not, I'm sure you guys probably got a lot of repeat customers and we've built up a good clientele ourselves, but it's just, I guess the more or less of pitching our product to people that, some of them are they're just going to try it once. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, even 8 years in business, we still at least, 30-40% of our schedule every day is first timers.
Yep. Yeah. And a good portion of them, will never come back. I mean, it's kind of like, it is a bucket list thing. There are tourists passing through who do it. And
yeah,
again, there are just people who will, do it once. And if it's not amazing and they're just kind of like laying in a saltwater bathtub, there's that old kind of float saying that it takes 3 times sometimes to really get into it. And yeah, if someone tries it out once and it doesn't click with them, lots of times they won't even come back for that second and third one. And I think that's true of Groupon people. I think it's true of just regular customers. And I think that's something you see across the whole industry,
For sure. Do you guys have a special offer you'd have set up for people coming in on Groupon at your place?
Well, what we usually do, mostly I think what Lisa's been doing a lot, and we've been doing is we just tell people we'll match the Groupon another time for them, and that goes for, because we on Groupon 1 float, 3 float sessions, and even all the way up to 2 float sessions. So people that really like it and they want to do more floating, of course, our 10 float package is something that a lot of people will go ahead and buy because, it's the cheapest way to float. I think on our 10 bag package, we can get it down to like $40, $45 a float for them, So, that's what we basically been doing is just matching and offering other packages that they did, even if they bought just a 1 float deal. What we do is we still will offer them the 10 float package that they didn't take advantage of on the Groupon price.
And then you get a lot of people who you can convert like that.
Yeah, but we've just, believe it or not, we're kind of behind because we've just really started seriously getting into the membership deal, but that's what our goal is, how's you guys' membership doing?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we don't really even advertise packages. Pretty much all we have is our normal floats and memberships.
Yeah, and it's because for us trying to get that recurring revenue in just feels like such a win. We want to get people. I mean, 10 floats, like a 10 float package, is also a pretty good package. A lot of times you see smaller ones, but
then they have to make a decision on that 11th float, and so the membership kind of reduces that point. It just becomes a thing where now they're a member and floating is part of their life.
Yeah, so that at least is the goal that we did. We used to offer more packages, and we actually stopped doing it at some point just to really try and drive people to membership. So in that sense, like, our membership is doing really good, but our packages are doing awful. Like, we sell no packages, you know.
They're horrible, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll let you guys go, and be looking forward to seeing you for the conference here this next year, because I think that'll also help us tremendously. I'm glad you guys are doing that, because Denver's a good market, and we're still not like you guys are up and down the West Coast. You know, we're still kind of behind in the float. Still, it's new here, even though it's not new, but it's new here. And you guys know that. You've been here.
Yeah.
So,
but it's definitely picking up, which is great. So yeah, it'll be really fun to have the whole kind of Denver float scene be on display for everyone at the conference.
Yeah, I'm excited for a new bus tour. That'll be great going around and visiting the centers out there. And yeah, hopefully we get to stop by your location on it too.
Do you know, guys, yet where you're having it?
No. Good question. Still trying to figure out some details. Probably somewhere downtown, you know.
Yeah,
in
okay.
the kind of main city
All right.
center.
Well, let get in touch with Lisa, and maybe she can also help. We can look around and see if what we can do to help.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we'll be visiting in a couple
suggest
weeks.
some places to go.
Yeah, so we'll reach out when we come there in a few weeks, and
Yeah,
and
because
we'll
I
be
know
glad to get your help.
I know Lisa's already. I think she told me the other day she's already kind of volunteered to help you guys out when you come here. So
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great. Thanks for calling in too.
You bet.
And
Talk to you later.
Yeah, talk to you later. And it seems like we have time for one more
Yep,
lucky
we'll
caller.
go a little late. We got permission from the venue to stay a little extra late, and our lighting guys said that they'd stay for an extra 15 minutes. So, yeah, we have one more special.
All right.
At the buzzer call, we got here
excited.
overtime.
Overtime
This is
call.
Oh, wait, how do you do overtime? I don't know what the hand signal
That's a
is.
timeout, I think, is what
Yeah,
you
no, I did a timeout. That was the opposite.
And you couldn't be more right about this being a special last call.
Oh.
Our last.
Is it you? Are you just going to hang it on that microphone?
Our last caller is actually Haley Maria.
Oh,
excellent.
Hello, Haley. You are on the air. I just realized I hadn't said that until now.
You were live.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Pretty great. How are you
Yeah.
doing?
Really, really fantastic. Now that I'm on the air with both of you, you guys got a great setup there. I like
Thanks.
the Rubik's Cube
Thank you. Yeah.
painting.
The
Last
Rubik's Cube
time,
mug,
very
yeah.
classic.
Yeah, so what's
I-
how can we help you? What's your question?
My question is actually not related to flow tanks. It's more related to the both of you.
Oh.
I'm really
I like
curious
talking about
to know what's next for you now that you're not going to be doing this podcast anymore.
Yeah, other than like outside work. You mean, yeah.
Mhm, yeah.
No, I would also really like to know that. I mean, it would be great to have some idea of what's going on in our lives.
Yeah. We said it a little earlier, but we really are terrible at planning ahead. It's not something that we do, and largely because when we do plan, we find that, we spend all this time planning, and then something else comes along that's really shiny and exciting, and
Yeah.
we just get distracted from whatever we were planning anyway.
And then we have to ruin our plans to go do the thing we want to do.
Yeah. So we tend to just sort of make spur of the moment decisions for really giant projects, which means, before we started this podcast, if someone had asked us, what are you doing with the next year of your lives? We'd probably be like, oh, we're running our businesses and doing things as usual. And then like a week later, all of a sudden we're doing a yearly or a daily podcast for a year.
Actually, when we went to make our first episode for this podcast, we were like, okay, well, we got to figure out an intro for this thing. And we just thought it would be funny to make a new intro for every single episode. And that was it. That was about as premeditated as that whole idea was. And that really got us into a pickle.
Yeah, that turned out to be very time.
It was a big
consuming.
project, but yeah, that was spurred on over the course of about a 30-second conversation. So that's pretty much how things roll for us.
And that's how Float On
Yeah,
started too.
the intros are definitely my favorite part for sure.
The rest of it's
so
pretty lame.
these are very much spur of the moment for you. I'm curious, how did the podcast come to be, and how can you kind of use that process of figuring out about the doing this podcast? How can you do that for future projects related to float tanks?
Yeah. Well, we hang out a lot, is what happens. And we end up
with microphones usually. I mean,
well, now, yeah, it's like part of our life. But right, so we just end up in silly conversations, and it's things like, hey, what if I like wear just 10 different float T-shirts, and then I take one off every 15 minutes during your call?
That was a fun conversation.
And it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll start with one and then put them on. And we're like, that sounds great. That really was. That was a conversation we had this morning. This wasn't like some big shtick that we had super planned out ahead of time. So
it was a bad idea. I'm very warm right now.
I'm feeling great. Yeah. Single shirt on, nice thin layer here. Yeah, so yeah, I would say like just being willing to have silly conversations and joke about things, and then for some unknown reason, just take those jokes and actually make them real.
It's more the things, I feel like things have to be useful and fun for us to do them. Like if they're just useful and they're not fun at all, we're not really that into it. And if they're just fun and not useful, we feel a little like irresponsible or something.
Or we do it on our free time or something.
Which we don't really have. So it pretty much has to be, it has to have that overlap. Like it has to both sound really fun to do and sound like it would actually be useful.
And so we just joke about a lot of things, like we're like, oh, should we have like fuck gravity up on the newspaper for the full page? Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, should we have the naked Santa getting into a float tank for a Christmas ad? Sure. Yeah, let's do it. And, a lot of the jokes just stay at joke level. But yeah, then the ones where we just randomly say something out loud and we're like, oh, actually we could do a different intro every day. That'd be
if they're
kind of
funny
fun.
enough, we tend to do them. That's pretty much, it's kind of one of the like perks. I think Graham and I both realize that like we should take advantage of the fact that we run our own business and like no one can tell us no, basically. And so when we have crazy ideas, like there's no one out there that can stop us. And we try to just really, acknowledge the fact that we have unbridled power and can do whatever we want with it.
And, abuse it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the main motivation.
Oh, thank you so much for answering my question. I do have one request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to do an outro for this last episode?
Oh, like a spontaneous live outro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we could do that.
I think we could probably put something like that together.
I feel like reaching down, just like pulling out my trombone, like that we had planned here or something. Did you bring any?
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this today.
Yeah.
It was really great chatting with both of you.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in, Haley. It was great hearing your voice on the air.
Absolutely.
And we will absolutely do an outro to bring you out.
So before we jump into it, I guess thanks, guys.
Yeah,
this
you,
has been
everyone.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who was actually watching us live. It really, don't toss that. But.
We're just acquiring musical instruments somehow.
Musical instruments, yeah. Honestly, thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Thanks for making this all worth it to do a crazy rig setup for an actual call-in show, which ends up being insane. Thanks for listening to us for a year.
Yeah.
If you have been. If you're just tuning in for this is your first episode, then, you got a year's worth of podcasts to listen to.
Yeah, listen to them backwards. It'll be really weird.
The intros will keep getting worse over time.
So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we love you guys. And, all of this is for you, including this outro. We dedicate this to you, the listeners. How's the Ocarina thing work? Hold on,
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, let me get a
boom, 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 boom. This is the first outro that we've ever done. Boom, boom, doom. We're just making up this silly little song. Boom, boom, boom. One time we thought that we should make outros for each episode. Boom, boom. But we realized that was even crazier than just making intros. Boom, boom, boom. So thanks for listening. Thanks for bearing with all the stupid jokes we've been making. It's been really nice to have you all along. Hope you enjoyed our outro song.
All right, now make that sound good, Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan will fix it in post.
All right, thanks
bye,
everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.